it's quite the opposite. So I believe it has to be opened by force, not by surrendering or negotiation. It's one way or the other, it should be open. That's what I think.
Okay, so you think that they've got to be compelled, it's got to be eliminated, whether or not they want to. You don't think they can be coaxed into disarming them? Is that correct?
I believe that it should be uh, opened by force.
Okay. Okay. All right. Victor, what's your state on that? What I mean, basically, I'm not who's right or wrong in this whole activity, but how long do you think Iran or the leadership in Iran has decided to deploy these mines and intimidate and control the use of the Straits of Hormuz? There's two sections. Iran owns half of it, and the other half is owned by, I think it's uh, Oman, some country like.
Oman and the UAE on the other
Yeah,
side there.
right. And but you can only, it's two miles across each channel. So
By the
and
way,
then
hi
there's two
Victor.
miles in between.
Hi
So
Victor.
what was
Hi,
that?
Jim.
Oh, hello,
I'm
Victor.
saying
Yes,
hello. Yes.
it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
good to see
think,
you, Victor. I mean, we're all on the same
thank
side
you.
of the turf. It's a good deal. We're
Thank you.
still here.
Although it's been a long time since I've joined on. I quite often look at the videos you put up because the links are quite interesting. And I found this one about the military, the technology around minesweeping and so on, very interesting. But in terms
Oh,
of,
did you
yeah,
get a chance to watch it?
yes, I did. I did.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I thought it was very legitimate, professional presentation. They worked on it,
Very
because
professional.
you could almost follow it and not go to sleep with all that technical data.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the technical data was obviously to a certain extent over my head, but the illustrations were effective, I was just impressed by the extent to which the technology has developed, both not only of the mining but also of the mine sweeping and so on, and obviously the mines, the cheap mines they can be constantly replaced, but in terms of the Straits of Hormuz, I have a different view from Dimitri. I think what needs to happen is the U.S. needs to take its bases out of the area. Then the straits will be opened. So it's not a matter of forcing the opening of the straits is like an extension of the whole uh, project that the U.S. started of U.S. and Israel started of launching a war against Iraq. I think there was no problem until they started attacking Iraq. I mean Iran, excuse me, when they started attacking
Yeah.
Iran. So, yeah, the political solution ultimately has to be for the U.S. to get out of that whole area, and that's a big deal. That's a huge demand, but that's what is ultimately at issue.
Okay, but just technically, you think that the mines were planted subsequent to this recent attack, or maybe after we went in with that the 1 day bombing attack
Yeah, no,
to yeah.
I don't know in detail about the chronology. My impression is that the mines have been available there for all along in anticipation of the possible attack of the kind that was launched against Iran. Yeah.
Well, but that lane has been used
Yes.
until, so they must have some control in turning the mines
Yeah.
on and off
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if they were
Well, and
there.
even now, they're letting ships through if they pay the toll and if they're not hostile forces. They're just keeping out the hostile forces, the U.S. and Israel and countries aligned with them and supporting them, and that's a retaliation for the attack on Iran. So the underlying assumption that the U.S. has the right to dictate things and to have its bases in the area, and those regimes in which the U.S. has military bases, these little Gulf regimes, they're highly unpopular. They're narrow monarchies, and to the extent that they depend on the U.S., they shouldn't. They have no legitimacy really in terms of their own people. So I think that the big political struggle is to mount such a amount of pressure on the U.S. to persuade them to withdraw. And Iran is doing this militarily, but there has to be political pressure as well on the U.S. to withdraw from the area. And of course, this is a huge demand. It's not easily going to be undertaken, but that's the way the conflict can be ended, and that's what Iran is demanding. And the U.S. went into this whole thing thinking that it could just decapitate the leadership and then do what it wanted to, and they've found out that that's not the case, and it's not the case for a very good reason, namely that they don't want to live under U.S. Israeli domination.
That's Iran. But
Yes.
I think you're alluding to the fact that these other states where there are U.S. bases, their populations are not pleased about it either. So
I presume that. I mean that they're not democratic countries, and in fact, I mean they're odd kinds of countries because in most of them actually the labor force is overwhelmingly imported from other countries, Southeast Asia and India and so on. So
I'm
those
going to
are,
pull up a map.
yeah, right. But they import their labor from overseas and hold them in very strict conditions, and so that they're not. There are no sense democratic governments. None of those Gulf states are democratic governments. They're far
There are
from.
no democratic countries in Middle East
Yeah.
and will never be. And Iran is also non-democratic country.
Well, it
So
varies. They have a little bit more accountability than those other states do.
what
That they do.
accountability?
They have elections and they have a degree of popular
Elections?
support. Yeah.
It's the fake elections.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union ran elections every time, but you call it legible elections?
Well, the elections in Iran have had an effect in changing, bringing about certain changes within their administrations, some more conciliatory than others. But the point is, what's more, they have a degree of popular support, which is important in especially even more so now that they're under attack. That's brought people together, and they're all, even those who dislike the Islamic Republic, and I have no liking for religious type regimes like that, but even those who dislike it are thoroughly opposed to the assaults that have been made on it, and they,
Syria was also had about 15% support of Assad regime. And same in this Iran country. About 20 to 15% support this regime. Majority people are opposed to this regime, and they are shot uh, without mercy, shot to death. So it's very far from democratic or anything you call legitimate, or I don't know why you bring this up.
well, no, it's just to mention that regardless of their feelings about the Islamic Republic, then none of them like being bombed by outside forces, and so that brings them together. That's
It will not bring them together.
well,
Okay,
it is
wait. Let him.
bringing them
Let him.
together.
1 minute, Dimitri. Just let him finish the sentence because you two guys are doing a good dialogue, but let him complete the concept. Finish what you were saying, Victor.
Well, I'm just saying that masses of people are demonstrating against these bombardments, and they're out in the streets, and there's reporting on it, and one of the good sources. I don't know if you've ever posted stuff by the journalist Pepe Escobar. He has very good sources on all these things, and yeah, no, I mean the whole thing is. In terms of democracy in Iran, it was destroyed by the United States in 1953. And you might say that the Islamic Republic turned out to be the only vehicle that was able to um, to really mobilize the opposition against the Shah, and so that's what they've got now. It was I consider it a step backwards in a certain sense to have a religious regime, but in terms of uh, the level of just general education, including even opportunities for women. It's more extensive in Iran than it is in the other Islamic countries.
Pardon me, what? Women have more freedom in Iran than in the other Islamic countries?
More, yeah, in the sense of being involved in the professions. Yeah, yeah, in occupations. Yeah, no, I mean the restrictions about what they can wear and so on are terrible, and so I agree with all that. But compared to, for example, Saudi Arabia and others, I mean, the imposition is not as extreme in terms of what they can do and just in the society.
Well, let me just give you a follow-up just so I understand. You're saying that you think Bahrain and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait would be relieved if the U.S. pulled its bases out
No,
and or
I'm
were
not
more
saying that.
accommodating to Iranian rule.
I'm
Or,
not saying that. I'm not
oh,
saying that. Those regimes are scared to death of that happening, but the population is something different from the regimes.
How do you know?
well,
How the
let's say,
population,
but that's
well,
he's
the
saying.
regimes have absolutely no mechanisms of accountability whatsoever, much less
How
than,
do you know about population?
well, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, they have the death penalty for people who express any, even the most minimal dissent. And well, at times when they've had uprisings like the Arab Spring in Bahrain, there was significant mass opposition, which was suppressed. So I mean, they're absolute monarchies, all those countries.
Did you notice that Arab Spring failed in every Arab country, because they are not ready for democracy. They want strong ruler.
Who's
That's
they?
what
Who's they?
Arabs in
Uh,
most Middle Eastern country, they want strong ruler. That's what democratic president, which will not suppress opposition, will not survive a month. He will be
Right.
deposed by somebody who is stronger, and who will be suppressing opposition effectively. That's
Okay.
well,
Okay.
that's not that doesn't
Okay.
reflect the
Go
general
ahead. Go ahead,
population.
Victor.
That's not a reflection of the general population. It's a reflection of the ruling classes in those countries.
no, it's a
Okay.
reflection
Wait.
of
Okay. Well,
general population.
that's a social it's a question. You got to get an honest survey of the population that isn't censored or intimidated to get that kind of a response. But Victor, we just had within the last 2, 3 weeks the Iranian government executing people who dissented just like that. And like last week, they one of the guys they hanged was an Olympic athlete or something like that. So what's that sound? That was
Wow.
strange. Okay. All right, let's so we got a disagreement here on that. But you're thinking that the public has not successfully overtaken any of these states that are shown up in the shared, Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, Bahrain, Qatar, and everything, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, even Yemen.
Yeah.
Where's there an example of a revolution that took over, even a guerrilla revolution
No,
like
I'm not
Cuba.
saying that there is one, but what I am saying is that the regimes in power. I mean, Iraq is a more complicated case, but the Gulf states is what we're talking about here.
Right.
The Gulf states are absolute monarchies. An absolute monarchy is by definition something that has that depends exclusively on its forced to maintain itself, and not on. But I added the information specific to those countries that their working class population is largely not even citizens of the countries themselves. They
Right.
import laborers from other countries. So
So
they're
that
like private fiefdoms.
right. So what I mean, but you couldn't expect the immigrants from Vietnam working in Qatar to have a
No,
revolution that would
of
affect
course.
the governance of Qatar.
I agree, of course. But the only point is that the American bases there are of interest to the rulers for their own good, but it's not for the they don't represent a general population. It's just they're as I say private fiefdoms.
Yeah.
So I think and the point is that the U.S. military has to get out of the region. If the U.S. military would get out of the region, they wouldn't be able to so easily invade and attack and cause the kind of devastation that is to which Iran is now responding.
It could
Yes,
be a
but
bloodbath.
you're not giving. Are you giving Iran a clear ticket, like they were sitting there and drinking tea and having, playing chess, and all of a sudden they got attacked? They
Well,
didn't. They don't have any record of animosity or negative activities.
there's no invasion forces from Iran. I mean, the reason Israel is, of course, against Iran is that Iran supports the Palestinians, the Palestinians against the genocide, as do other allied forces. But Iran itself has not invaded any other country and has been constant and has made. Of course, we all know about the nuclear agreement regarding its nuclear power that was reached under Obama, which Trump repudiated, which Iran was abiding by. I mean, they have no interest in war between the different countries. The wars have been imposed on Iran.
Okay. Well, okay. I hope that's
Oh,
interesting
I'm
to
an
hear that.
Iran supporter.
That's okay. I don't know. You got to talk to the Hezbollah and
Who
find
is
out where they get. Maybe they're
Oh,
getting their money from George
well,
Soros instead of from
the fact
Iran.
that the
Is
fact that they
Iran
get
the only country that execute people?
sorry.
I just wanted to know if Iran is the only country that people get executed.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Well,
good question. I wanted to
by
know
no
that
means.
too.
I mean,
Mm.
Saudi Arabia, it's
Yeah,
notorious.
Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all those countries, they execute people. It's not only Iran. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
it's for Iran, to give them a pass, but you can't say that, oh, they just executed people. Saudi Arabia is very well known for executing young
yes,
men, young
yes,
people.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's right.
however,
Okay.
the uh, it's about global domination, a regional domination, what Iran is trying to achieve.
Yeah,
All
but this
uh,
this is religious.
support Houthis.
Right.
These are Iran stooges, which are irrelevant to Israel. They are just another force, another militia. They supported militias in Iraq. They supported Hezbollah, Hamas, and all these people who are uh, simply funded and armed by Iran. It's not about Palestinians. That's like you will say that Hamas is on the Palestinian side. No, they are religious fanatics, which are will agree to uh, everybody death because they believe in heaven. They will go to heaven, and that's they don't bother about civilians. That's their faith.
Right. Okay. Hey, Jim, do you want to come in on this? Basically, I wanted to get some information as to how long do you think, or when do you think Iran's leadership deployed all of those mines in near the Straits of Hormuz. You know,
When,
there's 4 or 5 different kinds, and they've been there, and they obviously can control them, turn them on and off because they're allowing shipping going through, but they're saying, you know, we're going to stop anybody else, not just by military means of, you know, bombs or drones, but by the mines. So they must be able to control them remotely. And I was wondering, how long do you think they've been out there? I don't
well,
know if you had a chance to watch that link I gave you. It was very good.
watched a whole bunch of different things. First of all, they've been equipped to launch this kind of warfare since the Iran-Iraq War, which they did during the tanker war from 1980 to 1988.
Uh-huh.
They mines to disrupt merchant traffic, tankers, etc. And the United States at that time had a navy with 600 ships. Now we have a navy with 350 ships. So there's a difference in terms of what the United States can do quantitatively. Look at what happened when Trump finally realized that he had tipped a hornet's nest and that he had to ask for more ships from the allies. And then he was saying they're cowards and all that. So that's one aspect of it. The mining issue, they have a whole variety of mines, contact mines on the surface. They have mines that they can that are designed to explode under the whole the explosives devices based on the size of the ship. But if you note, the Iranians basically are trafficking all the tanker vessels away from the shipping lanes that are right there at the Straits of Hormuz. They're about 6 kilometers apart, 2 kilometers coming eastwards, 2 kilometers going westwards, and then in the middle there's another 2 kilometer pathway. They're vectoring everything to close to their shoreline. So the ships are actually coming through, they're being inspected by the IRGC, and then they're being allowed to continue. Now, some of them are reporting they're getting shook down for $2 million a piece. We don't know what the true amount is, but they're allowing ships to India, Pakistan, and China to go through. So the blockade is a selective one. It nevertheless, they're only getting, I think I saw an estimate of about, they've got 5 million barrels they can get out through Yanbu. That's the pipeline from the Gulf all the way over to the Red Sea. They're having problems getting the 1.5 million over to Fujairah, which is in Oman, and that's basically like problematic. So they're only getting around 10% of what they were getting through when this whole thing started. So that's one problem they have. Now, the United States, you can see how ill prepared Trump was because he sent pretty quickly a carrier, the Tripoli, but the Tripoli is equipped with only Ospreys and basically J-35As, jump jets, stealth bombers. It does not have the ability to land ships with amphibious capability. It doesn't have a well. So they've sent another ship, which will probably take about a month to get there, and that's on its way. So they really don't have an adequate enough force to do anything there in terms of ground operations. Now you're showing up here this map. If we got into a more detailed map, one could see that you can't see my screen. What's going on is they're sending the ships over near Bandar Abbas, and they're going through. They're basically heading shore, hugging the shore near Bandar Abbas, Minab, and then they're coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. Now,
So wait a minute. You think, in other words,
no, we know that that's going on. We can actually see in real time if you go to the maritime clocking.
no, my question is, they're doing it because they know where the mines are, so their pilots are taking the ships through in a safe course
Maybe
to avoid the mines. They say, I know where the mines are. You won't hit them.
right.
I'll pilot the ship. That's what they're doing.
They're basically checking out who is the ship. When they question them, they're trying to find out where the ship has been, who owned it, etc.
Yeah, but how do they protect the ship from activating one of the mines? You know,
Maybe
you
there are
mentioned
no mines and they just want to hit them up for millions of dollars or whatever.
You're avoiding
so
them all. They're avoiding the mines. I mean, totally. I mean, that's. I
Well,
mean,
how do we really know there are mines?
well, that's a good
Oh,
question. No, we don't. We don't know. All we do is just get these indications. There's a lot we don't know. Now, let me talk a little bit about what was talked about earlier. Quote the
go
idea
ahead.
of democracy in the Middle East. Um, I would point out Tunisia actually
That
overthrew.
was yeah. That's the one place where there was a successful
There's no
Arab Spring.
There's no doubt in the Arab Spring. I mean, one can have a mixed bag. The overthrow of Mubarak led to the uh, overthrow of the Muslim Brotherhood, and then Sisi's in power. So there's no doubt that there is a complicated situation with these different countries. Now, what Victor was saying is accurate. The population of the countries. I remember reading in the time of the Gulf, not the Gulf War, after the October War, during the oil shock. They were talking about, I read studies about the composition of the workforce along the Gulf, and it was a lot of Palestinians who had migrated to the Gulf to work because they were basically wanted to make money. And so you had large percentages of Palestinians all along the Gulf and Dubai, UAE. I mean, UAE I think was a creation in '71 or something like that. But all along the Gulf, up to Kuwait, they had a large percentage of Palestinians, and they viewed them as a security threat. So one of the things they consciously did was they made a long-term policy to diversify the workforce. And yes, indeed, if there was any attempt to revolt, they would put it down savagely. Now, and I listened to some guy teaching at Princeton a few weeks ago talk about the relationship of MBS. He's doing a biography of MBS. And so part of what he was talking about was how MBS is
You
basically
remind us MBS,
It's
Mohammed bin Sultan, the king.
ruler of Saudi
King
Arabia.
of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, he's the guy really running the place, and he is somebody who has no interest in democracy at all. I mean, he's
Yeah,
upfront about it. However, he is liberalizing the opportunities for women. For example, there was a famous. He said to me he was in this meeting with MBS where MBS, this prominent imam, comes in and tells him he has to get rid of movie theaters. They're a corruption of the Quran and blah blah blah. And he basically is very, very deferent to the imam and sort of walks him out of the place, yesing him to death. But then his last punchline is, well, remember the Quran says you have to believe the Caliph, and I'm the Caliph. So that's that's the tenor of the situation here. Now, whether the United States is going to withdraw, I doubt very much. I mean, the question of withdrawing from those bases, we're there. We're there to defend that oil. We've been there to deal with that oil since World War II. And people will remember that the oil that came in from the Middle East was particularly pure. I'm talking about during the Marshall Plan in Europe. So one of the reasons they secured, there are many reasons why they secured the oil. I mean, it goes back to the First World War when they decided to secure the oil for the Royal Navy. And that just was transferred to the United States in the Second World War, when the United States then started to outmaneuver and throw and figure out ways to get the British out of there. So this has been a long-term strategic interest of the United States. Now, Trump has clearly miscalculated this whole situation. I mean, listen, and part of what he's doing, of course, is, and the Iranians got it right on the nail, but the Iranians didn't have to get it on the nail. You could read the Wall Street Journal. He's the whole idea of selling the oil, $140 billion worth of oil from Iran, and then I think the Russians were given oil. He knows that he doesn't want to have the price of barrels go up to $150, $160 and more, and stay there, because that would totally screw up not only the United States, but the rest of the world. So he has been liberal, if you will, to make sure that the temporary oil supply is abundant to keep the prices down to about 110 to 90 a barrel. And we can see that that's not that great, because you see them out. Look at how much the price of oil has increased in the United States, and particularly out in California, by the way, because due to the refining capabilities in California, They don't have the same refining capabilities that they do in other parts of the country. So hence the prices of diesel and regular gasoline are higher. Um, in terms of what's going on, I just think they're playing a big razzle dazzle game to the American public and the world public. I mean, Trump, like, oh, well, they just gave us a big gift yesterday. I mean, I think, what did he say? They implying that they have kowtowed to him and decided to give him money. Now, the problem I have with this guy that they're, quote, deciding on is the, quote, ideal Delcy Rodriguez, the president speaker of the House of the Moslems. This guy was a commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. When he was 20 years old, he commanded a division of the Pasdaran fighting against Iraq. And all these guys who were in charge of the country, that is the scarring experience of their lives, to have to be in that bloody, inconclusive war that went on for 8 years. And they blame the United States for that. They considered it an imposed war. That's their terminology. And they feel that that was imposed by the United States. We can argue whether you think that's true or not, but I'm just telling you how they perceive it. So I am not.
Wait a minute. How can you make that statement that all of the people left over who are in positions of power and fought in the war with Iraq
Yeah.
blame the U.S.?
Well, they
Every
do.
single one of them blame the U.S.
They
You
do.
say, of course they do, but where did you get that idea?
First of all, where did I get it? I've been studying this for 50 years. But anyway,
No, but where did you get that they can blame the U.S.?
well, first of all, the people we've killed, the decapitation strategy. We know that from the. I mean, again, who knows what really happened? All we're getting is these leaks from the press. The New York Times argued just a few days ago that the head of the Mossad had persuaded Benjamin Netanyahu that he could essentially cultivate a revolt based on an air campaign. Well, that hasn't happened. And, I questioned Dimitri on the issue of, we don't really know how many people, what is the populace that is in support of the regime or not in support of the regime. We don't know what those real numbers are.
There are published numbers.
Well, we don't know. We really
very popular estimates that
they're popular. That doesn't mean they're accurate. And I don't.
Nothing is accurate.
Well, I would just never, because see, if you start saying that the government only has 15 to 20% of the people, well, the one reason, okay, you look at these big demonstrations that have occurred to support the Iranian revolution, the republic inside Iran. It's true that the government employees are required to go join demonstrations, so you get a whole bunch of them that have to go.
Enough of them.
But
It's enough to show a big crowd.
If you let me finish. So 15 to 20% is what some people estimate. I don't know what they base that on. That to me is perhaps wishful thinking. And there's no doubt. Look, I'm not going to defend what the Iranians have done to their own people. That I'm not going to defend one damn bit. But I've had friends who've been in Iran 2 years ago, and to Tehran, and the whole idea they had lifted the police, the religious police, are running around chasing young women if they're not wearing wearing their hijabs and all that. And so there is a difference, like again, I'm not going to get caught in defending a regime because I'm not in favor of theocracies. Okay, I totally oppose a theocracy, but at the same time, this was clearly an out of the blue attack. I mean, look at what just happened. They said we don't want Kushner and Witkoff here because basically they had to deal with them back during the June war, and then they attacked, and then they had to deal with them now, and then they attacked. So I guess they want Vance, and Vance, as you know, if you look at the press reporting, Vance is sort of being described as not too happy with what's going on. We don't know what he thinks, okay? But Vance is certainly in the MAGA fact.
To answer you, because you kind of say a lot of things which are questionable and could be challenged.
Well, of course it could be challenged.
Ongoing.
Challenge him, but
Okay.
anyway.
Dimitri, let him please allow.
Well, anyway, I'm finished. I'm finished with that. I mean, and again, who knows what's going to happen out of this? Tomorrow I'm going to have on Barry Rosen and John Littmer. Those two guys were hostages in 1979. They were part of the embassy hostages.
Let me ask Jim a question.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your first name? I
Um,
can't. Al. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, Alejandrina Ali.
Oh,
Jim,
Alejandra. Okay, go
Alejandrina,
ahead.
yeah. Jim, how long did you go to Iran? Have you been in there?
no, I have been to Iraq. I haven't
I
been to.
heard, I heard Max Blumenthal, and
Mhm.
I also Dimitri Likaris is there right now. And yes, it was a problem before for the woman not wearing the jihad, but it's not now. Now the women are allowed to go out without it. And this is was told by Max Blumenthal that he just went there. He just went there. I think a few months this year. He was there this year. This year, no, last year. At the end of last year, I think it was. And Dimitri Likaris, and he has that website called Reason to Resist. He's there right now, and he has been reporting from inside Iran. As a matter of fact, he was giving some information from Tehran last night.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that surprised him the most was when he went to a restaurant and he saw some of the ladies without it. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
reason that I'm asking
Yeah.
you.
Ali, they've relaxed all that for the past couple of years. I mean, uh,
Yes.
that's a fact because they realized it was ridiculous. I mean, they had the whole embarrassment when they had that whole problem with that young woman who, the Iranians claim she wasn't killed, others claim she was beaten, but that stuff they respond to, and they did loosen it up. But again, you know, I'm
He's
not
right.
there. I'm not there. There's
But you know what? There is a lot of women here that they're going through a lot right now on those ICE camps. Where they're putting a lot of these brown women from either from the Caribbean or South and Central America. A lot of these women are getting physical abuse and sexual abuse, including the kids. So some people they did talk about that girl in Iran who they said she got beat up in jail. But let's don't forget that it's happened in this country as well,
It's
and it's
switching the
only there.
subject.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
switching the subject. Yes, we have a lot of crime, but it's not nobody taken because of improper dress and murdered in jail. She was alive when she came to jail and she was dead there. So it's denying there. It
That
makes
isn't
no
what
sense.
happened here with the police department killing people from the back. What are you talking about? There is a
He
lot of
was
people.
murdered there.
Yeah. Did you see how the guy in Staten Island got killed? They put a chokehold and they killed him in front of the TV. Oh, everybody saw it. So
It's irrelevant to this
90
subject.
million people in that country, over 90
Irrelevant
lady.
subject. You switching the subject.
No, I'm not
We're
switching.
talking about
You're
Iran,
talking
not the
about like
world
the
problem.
only country that they committed crimes. There is a lot of crimes all around the world, and I'm not excusing the Palestinian. They be genocide.
It's no genocide.
Oh
It's
no, because you
Hamas
have to deny
propaganda.
genocide. I'm sorry, the
I'm sorry.
Palestinian genocide.
It's
Hitler
a
be-
lie. It's Hamas propaganda.
Oh,
well. Hey, look,
oh my goodness.
the situation there is one that I mean we get into the origins of these different groups: Hamas, Hezbollah, the Popular Front militias in Iraq, the Houthis. I mean, the Houthis have a whole separate history that is independent of, to say that the Iranians control them, or that they, when October 7th occurred, one of the things I've always noted is that the next day, Hamas is asking for Hezbollah to attack. They're asking for the Houthis to attack. They're asking for the West Bank to rise. The West Bank has always been, quote, in a counterinsurgency mode, and that didn't happen. And so, and you look at Hezbollah. Hezbollah, the Shia religion was recognized by the Shia in Lebanon. In fact, the Shia in Lebanon have actually stronger historical roots than some of the Shia communities in other parts of the Middle East. And so there was this intentionality on the part of the Iranian Revolution to export their revolution all over the place. And that was that tension is one of the reasons why we had the Iran-Contra affair, because the persons who were put in charge of that advisory group got angry when they discovered the trading with Israel for weapons, which was an objective of the Israeli government early on. They wanted to retain their relationship with Iran, regardless of whether the regime was in there or not. So all these different countries around there, and even with Hamas has to be looked on in different kinds of ways. I mean, sure, we just basically, consider them terrorists, okay? And again, when, you deal with people who've actually lost their loved ones. I mean, I spent time with a woman who was part of a project in Israel where she would actually confront the people who actually had carried out suicide bombing. These were people who were captured by the Israeli police. And she was part of this whole program. She lost her loved one. She lost her kid, her daughter, to a suicide bomber. And, people were trying to understand, why does somebody decide to blow themselves up? Why do they decide to, kill themselves in terms of the desire to, all sorts of reasons, okay? But part of it is that they felt that this was a legitimate weapon to be used against the Israelis. And that's what they did. And then when they started to use those kind of tactics against the Israelis in Lebanon in the early 80s, they were blowing up, it was a big famous headquarters of the IDF that was blown up in Tyre. And then, of course, you had the U.S. Embassy. And then you had the French and the Marine barracks blown up in 83. That was due to the nascent Hezbollah authorities. But what's behind that? What's behind that is that the United States was overtly intervening in the Lebanon war by providing naval support to the Christian Phalange, and they were bombarding the positions of the different factions that were fighting against the Phalange. So it's not like these organizations can be simplistically seen as basically being puppets of Iran. It's more complicated than that. They basically view themselves as brother organizations, frankly.
Not much complicated, because they are armed and financed by Iran. What Houthis, where they get their missiles? They do not manufacture them. They got it from Iran. No questions about that. So they get money from Iran, they get weapons from Iran. So who controls them? Maybe they are not fully controllable, but they are Iran puppets. And the same about Hezbollah. They were, there was Shiite minority living in Lebanon, and they were organized and armed by Iran. They got a lot of missiles. Guess what? They didn't manufacture them also. They got it from Iran. And Hamas is, they are a terrorist organization. And their goal is, it's Islamic fundamentalists. And you cannot kind of reasonably expect that they could be negotiated. Netanyahu at some point made the mistake providing them with money to try to kind of calm them down and find some common ground for developing relations with them. It was impossible. He failed, and now it's used against him that he promoted Hamas. It's it's simply impossible to negotiate with the Iranian uh, theocracy, and they are not reasonable people. They listen to Allah, and who knows what they get the message. It's of course will be uh, over overruled the any agreements with any country. What can you say when the gods tell you to do something? It's
Well, the Iranians joined the agreement under Obama, and it was the United States that pulled out, and they negotiated, and they were adhering to the agreement. So
they
that's
are
nonsense.
not. They were
They did, absolutely.
secret.
It was
They were
confirmed by
secret.
inspectors.
They're developing ballistic missiles,
Well,
which
that was
was
not part of the agreement. That the agreement
it
had to do with
was
Yeah,
nuclear.
mentioned
but
there.
The
there
ballistic
was a
missiles
not.
were defensive, were preparation for defense. They had no
What
intention of
defense
launching it.
in developing ballistic missiles? Tell
There
me,
was
please.
a
Well, precisely because of what happened, what the United States did. So they're sending missiles against the U.S. bases and against the forces that attacked them.
So you uh, kind of on Iranian side. So they, from your point of view, developing nuclear weapons is also reasonable.
I didn't say that. I
No,
said
you
that they're
are, if you approve their developing new ballistic missiles, same goes with the nuclear
no,
weapons.
well, it's different. There's specifically nuclear aspect that they adhered to. The the ballistic missiles they held in reserve for precisely the eventuality of what was done with the attack on them that was launched by the U.S. and
They
Israel.
attack Israel with their ballistic missiles.
It was retaliation
What for what? For
for the
Hezbollah?
bombing, for the
No,
U.S. and Israeli bombing of Iran.
No, it was after. Do you remember the sequence of events?
The
what?
sequence on February 28th, the U.S. and Israel bombed Iran. After that, Iran
No, it
retaliated.
was
There was
before
a
that.
12-day war also last year, where
No, no, no. It was the attack on Israel was before 12 days war. Do you remember that?
no, Iran did not send missiles to Israel before the 12-day war.
You are mixing up. You are wrong. Your facts are wrong.
All right. What you're referring to, Dmitry, is the exchange in April of last year. There was an exchange between both Israel and the Iranians. But the more wider problem is why they
I would like to go to details of the.
I will go to details because I know the details. And the idea that, they've developed ballistic missiles, they had conscious reasons to do that because in the later stages of the war with Iraq, the Iraqis began to bombard their cities and cause panic in their cities. One of the reasons why Ayatollah Khomeini, was forced to agree to the resolution, I think resolution 598, was because they were bombing the cities in Iran and causing panic among the population because the population wasn't used to getting bombarded by missiles. And the lesson they took from that was the necessity to develop a whole panoply of missiles, which they since then became put a lot of effort and concentrate on. In fact, they started to do that during the Iran-Iraq War. They began to actually allot the IRGC early on in the war to
You
develop that
change
kind of
the subject
but
immediately.
not changing the subject. You're you know
You
you're
are. I was talking about exchange. Israel, you said about exchange of Israel and missile exchange of Israel in Iran. I remember 300 missiles were fired uh, from Iran to Israel. Most of them, absolute majority, were intercepted, and Israel fired one missile to attack this defense installation, which destroyed. That's what exchange. And that was serious example. About ballistic missiles, they are different from short-term missiles. It's a different, goal. If you develop missiles to try to reach Diego Garcia, it's very different goals. So it's not about Iran-Iraq war.
All right.
It's
Well,
There was one other thing. Let me interject here because nobody's brought this up. The agreement that Obama made with Iran on to cease the developing a nuclear weapon was only a 10-year cap on it. It was only good for 10 years. Then it expired, and then they could resume. That's what I got a report on today. That agreement had a 10-year life. And of course, Trump backed out of it, but it was a 10-year life anyhow. So people considered that like, it was a bullshit agreement. Also, there was a statement that in order to get that agreement, he gave him, I don't remember, $150 billion or something.
It was
And then
Iranian
Biden,
assets that the U.S. had frozen.
yeah, probably frozen assets that were released. And then Biden gave him another bunch of money to get an exchange of prisoners. So there's morality and there's pragmatic. So holding, I think it's really crazy that you can just seize somebody's money because you don't like them if you're an American president. But they do it, and they've done it for a long time with Russians and I don't know about Chinese, but they do it when anybody they consider that they want to bend their arm and get them to do something. Cubans, so forth. A lot of money. So, but it was released and then it was used. Iran used the money to fund activities in Lebanon and Yemen and Gaza. And, they do it. So, and it's a question of maybe we're too enthralled with Israel because of American movies or something, or because of American comedians. But maybe Israel has too much influence on American politics. That's fine. But I don't think that Iran is admired or appreciated by all the other Arab states. Everything I've ever seen about the history of Arab states or Islam, excluding Indonesia, which is very Islamic and Muslim, excluding Indonesia, but in the Middle East, constant conflict between the Shiites and the Sunnis, the Shiites and the Sunnis. This started like 100 years after, I think it was 100 years after Muhammad was deceased. They decided who's supposed to take the throne, and then okay, you're on that side, I'm on this side. And Iran and Iraq fought for 8 years. Maybe it was instigated by an American CIA operation, but they did fight for 8 years. And they all have for different reasons, different motivations, to reestablish a caliphate, to reestablish control over the Middle East, or maybe more than that. There's a thing called the Ummah, which is, I think, the Sunnis' goal, which is the brotherhood of Muslims all over the world. And that's, there's peace all over the world as soon as you get everybody to become a Muslim. And that's submit. And that's the answer for worldwide peace is if everybody's a Muslim, that's the end of all wars. Except it isn't because they've been fighting ever since Muhammad passed away. And so I don't think that Iran is on anybody's Christmas list. amongst those states that are on the Persian Gulf, at least. And forgetting just take Israel out of it. They never arrived. They went to, like recommended, instead of going to Israel, they should have started a new country in somewhere in the Pacific, New Zealand or something, or
It's
some island out in
irrelevant
the Pacific
now.
island. Get away from everybody. But they didn't. And the UN did it, and the Arab states don't agree with it, and they never did. So, but without Israel, there would be conflict amongst the several states that were created by the succeeding allies of World War II, or no, World War One. They broke it up, and that's what happened.
Well, the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. But anyway,
Could I
Yeah,
just say
yeah,
one little tiny thing?
on Gail.
yeah. Go ahead.
Iranians are not Arabs. Everybody keeps saying that.
Oh,
It's
that's right,
wrong.
right. No, they're Caucasians.
They are Persians.
They're Persian.
Yeah, but every Iranian I've ever
Farsi
met
is what they
said,
speak.
"I am not an Arab. I am a Caucasian." They've said that.
You
So,
sure?
Absolutely, and they're Persian. That's correct. In fact, they don't speak Arab.
yeah, of
They
course.
speak
Yes,
Farsi.
that's correct.
So,
Farsi.
but I'm just saying. So,
Farsi.
okay, but they are Islamic. They are Muslims.
But
You know.
we heard about suicide bombing,
Yeah.
attacking Shiite mosques in Afghanistan.
Uh-huh.
Suicide bombing, where, it's not a legitimate usage of, like some people portray it as weapon used against Israel. It's simply weapon used widely now. It's nothing new about that.
Well, I had heard, I tried looking this up right now while you guys were discussing something. So maybe I misheard this or it's not true. But that if you die in a just cause from a fatwa or it's part of a jihad, and you die as a martyr, your entire family is accepted into heaven. So it's a big win for the family if one of their kids dies as a martyr. That's what I've heard.
Suicide
And that,
bombing was used during Russian Revolution in 1905. It was used against the Tsar and some of the nobility. It's nothing new there.
it's not new. The Japanese used it in World War II. I mean, I don't think it's
Yeah,
a major issue. It's not,
nothing
there's
new.
there's peculiar behavior in each culture. There's always something a little bit different. So
And
that's fine. But I'm
terrorism.
just saying they're not popular. Iran is not, there's no point in supporting Iran. They are not going to bring an age of wisdom and peace.
No.
That's not coming from Iran.
They want to dominate.
Yeah, they
That's
want to
their
dominate.
goal. And if you achieve withdrawal of American bases, they will invade these countries and dominate them from the way, like Saddam wanted to dominate Kuwait. Like,
Yeah,
that's,
All right. Well, look, the
yeah.
situation always, I find having
Bobby,
some.
not
Yeah, go on,
continue.
Ali. Go on, Ali.
Bye-bye.
Are you going to go? Okay, thank you.
Thank
Oh, thank you for attending.
Um,
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
yeah, I wanted to get back to where Dimitri was making a point about this issue of what happened back in the spring of 2024 and 2025. Now, there are reasons why the whole situation escalated. For example, the Israelis bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus in April of 2024. They killed a whole bunch of officials there. Now, in response, the Iranians seized a ship. It was linked to Israel, the MSC Ares, and they basically launched airstrikes, strikes into Israel at that time with missiles. All right, not as many as they did later, but it was a back and forth and back and forth. Then you had in July of 2024, you had the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, which was Mossad's one of their most clever assassinations. If you recall, they were able to get somebody who was part of the the guy was actually sleeping in a facility attached to Haniyeh, and they were able to infiltrate the room, and they blew him up inside the room. So that created another response, because at the same time when they were doing that, the Israelis were killing the Hezbollah commander inside Lebanon. So then Iran started to shoot their missiles off, and they did that throughout October. So that was indeed before the 12-day war. But there's a context to this. They're not sitting on their behinds from their point of view and not allowing a response to Israel. We can argue about the wisdom of that, but that's what happened. And the strikes that were launched, they basically sent 300 drones and missiles. If you recall, the United States, the British, and the Jordanians intervened to protect Israel. They shot down about 100 drones, and that was a situation where the United States did not participate in the retaliatory attack, but they basically said that if Iran escalated some more, the United States would escalate their response. Now, this is, of course, done during the Biden administration. So that's the difference right there. There's a difference of how they were trying to negotiate and de-escalate, and the hostage crisis is going on, etc. So I just wanted to point that out because it's all these situations, the way they reflect themselves, they all have these contexts, and to say that and again, I'm not like defending. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to understand why people are doing these things, and I think that
the context is going on for years, for decades. The actions, Hezbollah attacking Jewish community center in Buenos Aires, killing 80 people, and there are plenty of other acts attacking other people in different countries, attacking Israelis, attacking Jews. It's nothing new there. But using missiles, it's something new. At 300 missiles, it's different. All these things were happening for a very long time. It's the Iran declared war on U.S. and Israel since its beginning of this theocracy. And it was trying to do as much damage as it can. And its capabilities are limited. But otherwise, it's trying to do as much damage as it can.
all right. In 19
Jim, I wanted to ask you a question, or you want to answer something first?
I want to add something Dimitri said. Look, you
Go
can't.
ahead. Go ahead.
When the revolution starts in Iran in 1978, and then it goes through different phases up to 1981, 82. But during that phase, there's this uneasy alliance between the secular left inside Iran and the Islamic fundamentalists. And there's always a tension that explodes very quickly, although they were all loyal to Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, the idea that the United States was, like earlier, Victor mentioned the overthrow of Mossadegh, there was indeed, and then of course the White Revolution led by the Shah had to some people negative effects. And so the Shah's regime was unpopular, and they essentially blamed that on the United States. And so the United States, in terms of it being, like again, how they're viewing it, is an enemy that becomes very useful to Ayatollah Khomeini. When they seized the embassy in November of 1979, part of what's occurring is a power struggle internally within the Iranian revolutionary movement. They're seizing the embassy to essentially counter some of the other tendencies in the revolution that wanted to have, quote, a a understanding with the West, like people that wanted to basically release the hostages. And Khomeini immediately, if you recall, he immediately said, "No, I support the students," and that was a
Yeah.
deliberate intervention into the situation vis-a-vis the different factions of the revolution. Now, that is something the United States has never forgotten, because I remember when Eagle Claw occurred, the abortive raid, Desert One, when they tried to go and land in Tehran. Because myself and someone who has been on this show in the past, he's now passed, John Prados, we had a press conference where we were talking about what would happen. Well, how could you free the hostages? And we essentially predicted that they would launch a commando raid. And in fact, we even got down the tactical aspects of it pretty well. But again, the reaction I think it's true to say that the United States and Iran have been at war against each other ever since the revolution, and that is an objective fact. And we can, we can bring up the question of the Cobor Towers. You can bring up the Marine barracks. You can bring up the Argentinian in Buenos Aires, that horrible thing that happened down there. On the other hand, I would also bring up, in terms of how Hezbollah gets into action, it's the constant fighting that's going on south of the Litani River. And look at the solution now. The Israelis decided basically we're going to basically move the border up to the Litani River, and everybody in there right now is going to have to move out of that area. So there's about, 1 million people displaced at this point, and they're going to be forced into the north. So, but that is a situation that is looked on as one of the reasons why Hezbollah was able to have a hold on the Shia population, because they were viewing the Israelis as intolerant oppressors. And again, that's the sort of gets into the origins of Hezbollah. So all these different movements. I mean, yes, I would prefer to have a peaceful situation in Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians. I think that the idea, the Gaza situation is still boiling away. I looked at a satellite map of Gaza just a few days ago, and they were talking about how Gaza is essentially, they were talking about how the Israelis, are separating the buffer zone that they're creating inside Gaza, and they're basically reinforcing and surrounding the area that's, quote, confined with berms. So all along the line that the Israelis have built, they're creating berms that essentially, basically they've moved the Gazan population out of about 25 to 30% of the land inside Gaza itself. And at some point, the IDF is going to go in and say, well, we haven't been able to disarm the Hamas. We're going to go in and do the same thing in Gaza that we're doing right now with Hezbollah. Because remember, what the background of that whole intervention into Lebanon is that there was an agreement between Hezbollah and the Lebanese government that the Lebanese government would disarm Hezbollah. And that no one expected that to work. So we're basically seeing Israel taking it on itself to essentially depopulate the southern part of Lebanon and move people further back. The same thing's going to happen in Gaza. Smotrich and the other parts of Netanyahu's cabinet have openly said that. And then earlier, you brought up the question of the amount of money that went to the Hamas out of Qatar. And Netanyahu basically, seeing it in his self-interest and in the Israelis' self-interest to support Hamas, because they didn't view Hamas as a threat. And, and we still haven't had an opportunity.
There are a lot of things, and
discussed.
I would like to comment on them.
All right, go on.
Okay, go ahead.
First, the Gaza was under occupation of Israel, and in 2005, they were given opportunity to show what independent Gazans can achieve by itself. And instead of developing a livable kind of area, they selected building tunnels, creating military force, and constantly attacking Israel with missiles. It's nobody, no country will tolerate that behavior. And it was not acceptable. And things like this will not be tolerated. Second, the events with the Hezbollah, they sit quietly, and suddenly, on the uh, order of Iran, they decided to attack Israel. And they attacked Israeli villages and cities right across the border, forcing people to depopulate this area. It's also unacceptable. And so
Find all
the
of that shit. All he has to do is apologize.
somebody talking over me.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll find
And
out.
so the Lebanon government is weak, and it's if it cannot disarm Hezbollah, nobody else will. And the UN forces were proven useless as they were sitting in their towers and their observation posts, and Hezbollah was digging tunnels and planting their missiles uh, uh, right next to them. So it's Israel kind of a lack of choice. They have to do it themselves. And I don't see any way out. If you've been on Israeli place, what can you do? What can you do to leave portion of the country free of missiles coming from Lebanon? There is no other choice. You cannot negotiate with fanatics. They simply do not want to negotiate with you. The negotiations is only for ceasefire, but the long term of this fanatics is elimination of your country or you. That's what I could say. I'm done.
Okay, that's it. That's a response. I got that. A lot of people have a similar sympathy. Jim, I have a question about the boats and the mines. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that whole thing, but the point being, the basic point had three things to it. One, he went over what kind of mines they are, four different kinds, basically, and very dangerous and hard to defeat. That was actually the second thing he did. But the first thing he did is he went over what the U.S. Navy has, and they have high technology which can eliminate the mines without risking sending frogmen down. Nobody goes in the water. That used to be the thing. You'd have to have Navy frogmen go down and find the mine and disable it or make it go off or something. But then now they've substituted that with remote things and with signals and new kinds of LiDAR that goes down and so forth. And it's all there in that video. And then it goes, again, looking at the details of the mines. But the question, the title of the subject was, why isn't this Navy doing it? And he said that's because these boats that have that high tech, they're not going to be protected. They're not battleships. They can't defend themselves. So you have to bring these boats in with other boats to defend them. And you have to do it at a point in time when Iran will not be able to attack these boats easily.
Well,
And
you have
that's the reason why.
well, the reason. Well, first of all, the boats that actually have that capability are called littoral class ships. There's
Okay.
and they're slow, and you have to
Yeah,
protect destroyers. You have to give them destroyer escorts.
right.
So the question of them going in and actually putting themselves in harm's way is something that I think that Trump probably quite intelligently has decided not to do because they don't have enough escort vessels there. They had about 25% of the active duty Navy when they began this whole operation. Remember that Gerald Ford had a fire in the laundry room, and so they had to go retreat to Suda Bay to repair themselves. So, and then the other aspects of this is that the other NATO allies have minesweeper capabilities, which is what the United States was asking for. And what happened, by the way, during the Ernest Will operations in the tanker war in 87, 88, was we were able to appeal to the NATO allies to supply escort vessels and minesweepers. So I think that they're just making a calculation that they don't want to risk an LCS to be attacked by the Iranians because the Iranians would love to sink an American ship. And and I think that that's the reason why they're not actually fighting their way through the Straits of Hormuz. I think that they just don't have enough strength to do it, and I think that we don't know what the actual negotiations are between Iran and the United States at this point, but it's clear that one of the reasons why Trump wants to maintain that facade is he wants to keep the market under control and the price of oil under control.
Right.
Because
But it's so you're saying the US Navy does have the facility to get rid of these mines, to clear the whole field,
they have,
except they have to be protected.
yeah,
And
they
at
have
this point in time, we can't get the ships there fast enough and we can't provide them with enough. We
two,
can't eliminate their potential to destroy the ships.
well, the two LCSs are already there. The question is, what about the escorts? That you have to send 3 or 4 destroyers in there, Arleigh Burke destroyers in there to guard them. And if I recall, there's a whole bunch of Arleigh class destroyers out there in the Indian Ocean and in the Arabian Sea that are part of the escort vessels guarding the aircraft carrier. And then there's also vessels at Diego Garcia, which, as you know, the Iranians tried to hit with a missile. And so the technical things I listened, there's another good briefing about this is the International Institute of Strategic Studies did one today, which is also interesting. It's a couple of days old, but they basically dealt pretty well with military stuff. And the conclusion of the guy was very simple, like, a minus brigade, even somebody like McChrystal, who was on the New York Times, he basically said that, there's not enough strength to do anything. I mean, really, ground strength. There isn't enough ground strength to do anything. Alex wants to talk. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, let's give it to Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I first want to mention again, well, one reason the Lebanese might not want the Israelis there, and again, this has been documented, including from Israeli declassified documents, that when Israel controlled southern Lebanon between 1977 and 2000, they had a torture center at Qiyam. Again, this is extensively documented, as I said, including from Israeli declassified again, where they did things like shock people's dicks. They stuck electrodes in people's dicks and beat them, whip them. So again, I think, and Lebanese know this history. That's not something. And again, they knew it at the time. Of course, Israel denied it, but some Western reporters, like the famous one, Robert Fisk, again documented this as well. Again, before he died. So again, that's, and rightly, again, I think the Lebanese would be worried again, the Israelis would basically bring it back. Because again, and this happened again, both under, supposedly liberal Israeli prime ministers like Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres. They didn't stop the torture. So again, the idea that, it's only the right wing Israeli governments that did that kind of thing is just, factually incorrect. But the thing I really wanted to talk about is, again, I don't know, Ken, you probably didn't see the piece Alfred McCoy did on democracy. Well, you don't listen to Democracy Now, but again, he made some very good points on that Iran continues to have basically escalation dominance because of the vulnerability of the Gulf states' desalination plants if there's any kind of big escalation. Because, for example, there's only a single desalination plant that pretty much supplies all of Riyadh. So if that gets taken out again, and he pointed out again, all these desalination plants are very vulnerable. Again, they have, in order to, do what they do to desalinate water, they have all these caustic chemicals that are basically, you just kind of scratch it and the whole thing is going to go up. And again, the one in Riyadh in particular is worrisome for the Saudis because again, it's pretty much supplies almost all the water to Riyadh, and basically you would have to move 10 million people if it goes down. And again, as Professor McCoy pointed out, it's they're very, and again, this would be basically throughout the Gulf states. You would have again mass, million, tens of, not just millions, tens of millions of refugees. So all these threats about, attacking Iran's desalination or taking out their oil infrastructure. Iran has an incredible, ability to basically essentially render much of the Gulf uninhabitable. Because again, their populations are way too much for, again, the amount of rainfall they have. Because remember, these are mostly deserts. And again, they have the carrying capacity based on like the local aquifers is, they need again those desalination plants. So again, like I said, like literally like 10 million people in Riyadh would have to move within a few, weeks, or again, they would, they would be out of water. And again, where are they going to go if you
Same in
lose every?
Israel, Alex. They have
The Israelis going to let
desalinizations,
in
I'm saying.
remember, I think Saudi Arabia has something close to, I think it might even have over 100 million people, if I remember. So that is going to
What?
move,
100
tens of
million
millions of
people
Arabs
in
into the
Saudi
country.
Arabia? You are
Sorry, Dimitri,
misinformed. You are
what are you saying?
misinformed. Did you say 100 million people in Saudi Arabia?
I think so.
No, you are grossly misinformed.
Oh, well, it's tens of millions anyway. Maybe I
No.
didn't get but again, the whole population again. Let me
Well,
check it.
wait a second. This is another move by Iran that says, you do what we
Well, it'll be in
say, or we will.
retaliation.
You do what we say and back down, or we'll destroy the
Yeah.
world.
Well, again, they're
We'll
just doing
destroy
to us.
everybody, not just our enemies. We
It's
will destroy our allies and people as long as we know where you've got something,
Right.
we'll destroy
Well, they
it.
have total justification because again, it's
How
been
do they
admitted. No,
have
no, no, no,
how do
Ken,
they
let me
have
finish. It's
justification
been
for
admitted that the
50
U.S. is
billion dollars.
attacking Iran from Saudi territory.
hold it
So,
hold it a minute, hold it a minute. Slow down. I'm asking, how
32
does
million.
it how does it justify destroying the water desalination in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or other countries that are not attacking Iran because they don't like what's happening with the
They,
U.S.?
they,
How
they
does
are
that
attacking,
justify?
they are indirectly attacking Iran because they're allowing the U.S. to use their airspace first off. And we know this is well documented. Plus, actually, again, it's come out that, again, the U.S. is using HIMARS missiles that are clearly, again, attacking from the Gulf. Because, again, they only have a range of, the greatest range of those is 300 miles. And they can't be anywhere but in the Gulf states if they're going to reach Iran. They have to be in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the
Okay,
UAE, or
so you
Oman. They can
consider
only, and again, it's actually also been documented and admitted to by various Western news outlets that this exactly is what's happening. They've been
okay,
shooting
so
HIMARS missiles from those countries. So
So
Iran has
what,
every
Alex?
justification.
So what?
okay,
That's what we've been
So what?
talking
Again,
about before you came on.
that's called you joined the war. You joined the war. You're allowing your territory to be used to attack. What do you think's what is gonna happen to Mexico if somebody, parks a missile launcher and starts, shelling El Paso? What do you think we're gonna say, oh, it's another country. We can't hit them back. Of course not.
okay,
Again,
so
this is the same
wait a
logic.
second. Okay, so let's take that as a fact. All of the what they call them, somebody call them the Arabs, the states along the Persian Gulf, all of them are at war with Iran. It's not just Israel and the U.S. It's Qatar. It's Saudi Arabia. It's every single country is currently at war with Iran, right? That's what you're saying, de facto, and therefore they have the right to reattack or kill anybody, send bombs. I would say, I'd say their tactics is a real motivation to say let's prevent them from getting an atomic bomb, an atomic weapon, and ballistic missiles, because obviously they're going to have all these other countries, and they're going to have to defend themselves from. So okay, let me you can demute yourselves. I understand. So you're saying it's de facto now. All of the states are against Iran. It isn't just U.S. and Israel.
No, again, they always were again because they were flying planes from those countries, and we could see again they were flying over those countries because we could see in some cases, Jim can tell you this too, that some of the military planes accidentally turned on their transponders that showed that they were flying over that territory.
Okay, great.
And again,
okay, let's get somebody.
Just one thing, Ken. If those countries want to be out of the war, they had to basically say, you can't use our airspace. You can't fly over our territory. You can't shoot your missiles through our territory to hit Iran. That's how you.
Alex, we talked about that an hour ago. You just weren't here.
No, I don't think we did.
Right when Ken started us off. I forget, not Dimitri, but the other Victor said it. Victor said it, I think.
I would like to hear
comment, Alexander.
Okay, Dimitri.
Mike, wait, before we go to Mike, 1 second, Mike. Frank, you're really, I consider, aware of a lot of tactical things. Do you consider that all of these states along the Persian Gulf are at war with Iran because they're permitting flybys and missile launches from their country? Frank, can you do that? Yeah, you go. What do you think?
Well, I mean, my 2 cents is that apparently Saudi Arabia is arguing that, they've lived there for millennia and they live next door to Iran. So I think they're rather, they can't actually integrate themselves very well with the US forces. So they're sitting on the side saying, they prefer to negotiate. So that's Saudi Arabia, and I suspect that's pretty much the same with everybody else. This is an Israeli-American conflict. Well, no, that's the coalition that calls the shots. I don't think they see themselves as being a key belligerent. I know they're being impacted by this, obviously, but they're expecting something to happen within the next few days, right? As is everybody on, who's looking at the way that the prices are going, stocks are going, and the oil price too. But I would say that. See, I was listening to Larry Fink of BlackRock. I don't know if you mentioned this already. You probably already have. And he's saying there's going to be a recession if it goes and stays at 150. That's Brent crude, right? And that's inevitable. Unless the regime is changed, in which case it'll go back down to 40 and there won't be a recession. So that's a bottom line. And that means it's more than just clearing the strait. It means, the 82nd, at least a brigade has been called up. Not called up, but they're being shunted over there. 10th Mountain may be involved. There's some call for that as well. So it's going to be essential for Trump to actually cause regime change. And how he does that and how many people we're going to lose is immaterial to him, because if he loses in November, he loses big. He's going to be impeached. It's it's going to get bad. So, you know, that is a bottom line. And obviously, from Israel's point of view, it needs to end. And the only way that can be is, again, by regime change. So even though that was a very interesting viewpoint from the Navy as to how to clear the Straits of Hormuz, and yeah, I get it, but we're going to have to get embroiled even more to make this happen, because as long as they've got mines and as long as they've got ballistic missiles, and definitely they're going to get stuff from via the Caspian, probably from Russia, because it's in Russia's interest to keep this going. So as long as that's happening, that means there's going to be drones, fiber optic drones. It's going to get hellacious around Bandar Abbas. So yeah, it's going to have to get interesting, and it's going to have to get interesting probably starting, maybe Sunday night. Yeah, because I think they're going to be on station by now, the Tripoli, and they're all on as I understand it. And yeah, so I don't think he's got any way out. And he is being, I'm talking about Trump, and I think he's being seriously pressured by his own internal cabinet, because obviously Kent's out. Yeah. And I think Vance would like to say something, but I don't think he can. I think he's been sidelined too. And that leaves Rubio's happy with Cuba going. So who does that leave? Steve Miller, really. And there's internal pressures. So doesn't look good. If you're in that Marine Brigade, the MEU, the 31st MEU, or the 82nd, or 10th Mountain behind them, you're going to have an interesting time of it. But I'm not saying it's not doable necessarily, provided there is precise surgical cooperation between the Air Force, which needs to be there loitering, not just with A-10s and Apaches, but pulverizing everything in the vicinity of those ground units. I mean, even the sign of, any movement at all, or any kind of, they could have LiDAR the place to the point where they know absolutely every nook and cranny, etc. But they're going to have to do some kind of run towards securing a good portion of Iran, such that you've got a rump state. That's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, it sounds bizarre maybe at this point, but you've got to secure the strait in such a way that things, we can get the 20% of the world's oil, helium, and fertilizer, and aluminium, and all the rest of it through there. But it's going to cost maybe 2,000 lives. That's max. But still, that's what it's going to cost. And if we do that, Trump does not go to prison, which would be a good thing. After all, this is the anniversary of the revolution. It's not a good thing to have the President of the United States locked up. So, just from, the rest of the world's perspective, doesn't look good. But in order to do that, you have to do a regime change. That's my cup of tea.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mike. Mike, unmike. There you go. Go ahead.
First of all, I have to disagree with Frank on one point. I think it would be a great celebration of the 250th anniversary to send Trump to prison, but that's just my opinion. I don't see how you're going to open the straits without seriously denuding Iran's missile capacity. Even if you clear the straits of mines, you still have, and you minimize the risk, you're still going to have ships hit, even if it's randomly, by missiles. So yeah, in that case, you might have to at least shoot for regime change, or at least to incapacitate their missile capacity, their ballistic missile, not intercontinental ballistic missile, but their ballistic missile capacity by a serious amount, at least 75%, if not 90. They have denuded it already. The Israelis have, basically, the Israelis have gotten what should have been their objective already, which is to neutralize a lot of Iran's offensive capabilities and defensive capabilities, which means they'll probably have to go back again, but I think they're fully aware of that. This is going to be an ongoing thing every couple of months, every couple of years, whatever it is. I do have a question for Alex, because I just heard an interesting comment from him. I mean, he talked about the torture that was going on, even during any Israeli administration. So I'd like to know what it is. I know what you have against the United States, Alex, because you can't get a job. I mean, there's other reasons you can't get a job, but that's probably one of them. Okay, that makes some sense. What do you have against Israel? Is it because, according to you, nothing Israel does is right? I mean, regardless of whether or not what you're saying is true, I have my doubts about everything you're saying because, as far as I'm concerned, you're a propagandist. But I'd like to know, that aside, what it is you don't like about Israel. I mean, you just don't like a Jewish state? I mean, you haven't come out in a Marxist idea against any state. You haven't come out against the Palestinian state. You haven't come out against Iran. You haven't even come out against racist, virulently racist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. But you certainly have come out against Israel. And I'm just wondering, I mean, what is it? What is your problem with it?
It's an apartheid state, Mike. That's
excuse me.
Which again, I know you don't agree with, but again, I think it's well documented again, which is why again a number of South Africans, like say Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, who you used to say good things about, they again saw the direct analogy, and again they lived in an apartheid state, so they knew something about it.
But the idea is you have something against Israel even before that. I mean,
I used to,
okay, well,
again, before.
Let me ask you a question, okay? Prior to 1967, or even allowing Israel to control those areas of East Jerusalem where it has its holy sites, its holiest sites, which I hope you're not going to make something anti-Semitic and say something anti-Semitic and say they don't have a right to those. But let's say they gave back all the rest of the West Bank. Do you still think Israel has a right to exist?
No state has a right to exist.
No state has a right to exist? Then Iran doesn't have a right to exist.
No, it doesn't. Again, it has, except that it's people decide that it's, and again, and Israel doesn't, because Israel essentially stole the land that it's on. It doesn't have the same right that other countries have. Again, I would apply this to the United States as well, which, as you know, basically stole all of the land that we are on. So I don't think we have any right to our, and again, plus I think again the recent actions, even if all states had.
Cut the propaganda. Israel was formed in 1947, basically. It became a state in 1948. That's a few years earlier. Just a few years earlier, Jews were being murdered to the point of 6 million Jews. 1/3 of 30% of the Jews in the world, and nearly 2/3 of the Jews of Europe. Yeah. Now, that's a greater percentage than anybody else has suffered. And they decided, since no Jews were allowed in while the Holocaust was starting, no other countries, none of the countries, or very few, certainly none of the countries that you champion allowed Jews into their territory who were trying to flee the Nazis, allowed Jews in. So obviously they needed a place to go. But you're saying they didn't deserve it. How many Jews would have had to die? Well, we know it doesn't matter how many. So that argument doesn't wash either. You know why.
Mike, does do the Armenians have a right to, take land from Turkey because of what was done to them? You're going to support
If it was,
Armenian attacks on Turkey?
if,
Are you going
if it
to
was,
you want
if it
Israel
was,
to
you're,
support, and
wait, wait,
Israel
wait, wait.
could
You're asking me a
support Greece,
question.
Greece taking
You're
back
asking
its
me a
territory
question.
from Turkey as
Are
well.
you asking me a question, or you just want to hear yourself
I'm
talk?
asking you a question. Yeah.
Okay, then shut up and let me answer. Yes, Armenia has a right to take back land that was theirs, that was taken from them. Yes, they do, because of what was done to them. Land
Okay.
that was theirs originally. Yes, I do say that.
Regardless of how many people they would have to kill to take that land back?
How many people they would have to kill, or how many people they would have to displace, possibly?
Both.
How many people? No, how many people would have to live under that Armenian regime? Regardless of how many people would have to live there.
Still be several million,
Don't start
because
telling me about
there's a pretty big
if
chunk of
people
Eastern
resist.
Turkey.
If people resist and they fight back and they start killing Armenians again, yeah, they're going to have to kill them. That's self-defense.
Okay. Did the Viet Cong have a right to resist us in South Vietnam?
Did the Viet Cong have a right to resist us in South Vietnam? Yeah.
So what's the difference between the Palestinians and Israel?
What do you mean? What's the difference between the Palestinians and
They
Israel?
are just like the Vietnamese. They are the native people who are being expelled by a foreign occupier.
The United States were never people.
No, Mike, answer the question. Answer the question. Don't obfuscate.
Wait,
Answer the question.
no. Shut up, Alex. Jesus Christ. I'm answering your question. The Vietnamese, to me, it is not the same. Because Americans, people from the United States, were not living in Vietnam before that. They did not have any rights by any history, by any of their ancestors, to any of the land in Vietnam. What you have in the Middle East is two sets of people, or actually several sets of people, all of whom can claim ancestry to that land. And that's including, and if you go further back, it goes the furthest back, the Jewish population. So what you have is not the same thing as Vietnam. Your analogies don't hold up because
actually, no, Mike, because again, there clearly were peoples in that land before there was a Jewish religion or a Jewish people.
And those people
we would understand it now.
Alex, those people, a lot of them became Jews. I mean, don't you get it? Who do you think became Jews there? Where do you think Judaism started? You think a bunch of people came in from halfway across the world and said, we're going to force this religion on you? It started there.
Look, Mike, again, if the only justification is, okay, some group happened to be there at some point in the past, then again, there are a lot of borders we can change again. And in fact, again, you're justifying the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because of course, again, that territory was part of the Russian Empire a long time before, again, modern Ukraine came into existence. So you're justifying Putin.
Alex,
What's the difference between what he does?
You're not thinking rationally on this. The people in
Ukraine,
their ancestors were living there before. Their ancestors were living there all the way back, even no matter what part of whose regime it was. The Ukrainians who are living there now didn't just come into Ukraine about 200 years ago. They were there.
And so
the fact of the matter is, what you are denying, and the key part to my question is, why are you concentrating on Israel to the exception of all other countries? Because you can make arguments like this about Iranians. You can make it about most of the countries in the Middle East, but you don't.
Actually, no, because Iran has been remarkably non-aggressive in the last 200 years of its history. In fact, again, as far as I as doing research on this, the last time Iran invaded any other country was in the 1850s. And
Oh,
again,
okay. Excuse
for
me.
when they invaded Afghanistan and fought it out with
Excuse
the
me.
British there. But again,
Is,
since
is,
then, they haven't attacked anybody. They've
is
been
an
attacked several
invasion
times.
is an invasion the only way you can be belligerent towards a country? Can you fire missiles into a country? Can you
Well, again,
bomb
with all
them?
these cases, the
Can you
cases of
commit
Iran, again,
terror
Iran
attacks?
was attacked first
Now,
in pretty much
Alex, so far all I'm getting it from you is propaganda.
oh
What
no,
I
these are
want to
facts,
know
Mike. It's
is a
just not
spirited.
facts you
I don't
you
care.
you
Look,
agree with.
there are facts supporting you, and there is facts supporting other people. If you're going to be selective about your facts, you're not putting out all the facts. You never do. So what I want to know is, what is your problem with Israel in particular? In particular, even if there are other countries who are have basically apartheid policies, even if Israel's apartheid policies disappeared, I would be willing to bet you would not support Israel. You would not support their right to exist. That's what I'm getting from you. No matter what
I would
Israel
support
did.
Israel within its original borders of 1947, because at least
Oh,
that would go
really?
back to the
Would
UN.
you?
Yes, I
Would
would,
you?
Mike. Yes,
You would.
with again, that would be again, of course, a
Okay,
relatively
then let
small
me ask you a
territory.
question. Okay, Alex, okay. And you would support their right to be there. So
Yeah,
if Israel withdrew to those borders and they had a war with Iran, like they do now, you would support Israel.
a war of aggression. I've never supported a war of aggression again.
If Iran was sending what, because remember, the people, the Fatah and most of the Middle East did not accept Israel within the 1948 borders, 47 borders. They did not accept it. They sought to eliminate it. A lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them sought to eliminate Israel. And if Israel wanted to eliminate those groups or fight or attack those groups who were trying to wipe it off the face of the earth, even under the 1947 boundaries, would you support Israel in their fight against them?
Not again if they're being the
All
aggressor.
right, okay, Alex, you
But
basically
again,
answered.
and again,
Alex,
that
Alex,
would require
yeah,
among
I
other
know,
things
I
for
know.
Israel to implement the right of return, which
Yeah,
again I don't think they will
okay,
ever do.
okay. The idea is that you don't accept Israel. You don't accept a Jewish state under any circumstances,
I don't accept any
even though you accept
ethno-religious state. No,
anybody
I don't.
else's state. And to me, that's racist. So you can
Oh,
think whatever you
my,
want
you
about
shouldn't,
yourself.
you shouldn't, I know you
I
love
shouldn't what?
throw around this, racism charge again
Oh,
against,
really?
against
Really? Because
Palestinians and against Arabs.
okay.
But again,
So because
it's Israel. It's Israel that's been funding again Islamophobic
oh yeah, oh
organizations
they've been
throughout the
funding
world. Again,
Islamophobia.
they have
They've been
been.
funding
They
it.
have been. They
Yeah,
fund that racist what's it, I forget his last Tommy in the UK. Again, they
yeah,
as usual
okay.
again they
All
kind of
right,
fund it behind through
okay.
different cutouts,
So
but that's
because
been
Israel
documented.
So, okay. So you could be as anti Semitic and as racist as you want, as long as Israel's or some
No, I
Israelis
oppose
or
Israel,
some
not
Israeli
Jews, Mike.
government.
Again, that's
Well, that's what I want to think
You're the
about it.
one who's conflating Judaism and Israel, not me. You're the one who's being, and again,
What?
it being conflating Israel and all Jews that's in fact anti-Semitism.
No. What I'm saying is that in other words, if a number of Jews want a Jewish state, and if there are other states that are based on race, religion, ethnicity, or national background, and there are other states in the world, then why shouldn't they have it? I don't want to, I'm Jewish. I don't want to live in Israel, but a lot of Jews do. And a lot of Jews did after the Holocaust. And you have always conveniently ignored certain facts. You
Not
conveniently,
always, Mike. Again, for a long time, I was basically just another, call me a
yeah,
liberal Zionist. But then again, I actually started being a
then you,
historian. I actually
You
started to
saw
read
the
about
light.
how Israel was
You
formed
saw the light of
and
racism
how
in
Israel had acted through its
Alex,
from
Alex,
1948 on, and that
whether
was again,
whether you
and
know
that's
it or
again what
not,
turned me against
whether you
Israel.
know it
It's
or not,
actual
you are
conduct,
supporting
not
anti-Semitic
anti-Semitism, Mike,
and
like you
racist
think.
policies. You can think what you want, and I'm not even saying you, I won't even say you are racist or anti-Semitic.
Of
But
course you are, Mike. Of course you are.
no,
Because
don't tell me
anybody
what
that's
I'm
opposed
saying.
to Israel is a
Alex,
racist, an
don't tell me what
anti-Semite.
I'm
That's what you
saying,
basically
Alex.
believe
Alex
in your
Schmuck.
heart of hearts,
I
Mike,
am
and we
not
all know
saying
it.
that.
We all know
If
it.
you're saying that, you are.
Okay, I'm muting both of you guys. You got to go get an apartment and continue this. I tend to, I don't know
Excuse me, I'm
why
not living
nobody
with him.
talks about the fact that Europe was Christian for like 400 years until Muhammad died, and then the next year and the next 10 years got conquered by Islam, Arabs. They weren't there before. They conquered it. They conquered all the way up through Turkey, Spain, and Italy, and everywhere, all over the place. All somebody else. They kicked everybody else out, or the basic rule is if you convert to Islam, you're okay. If you don't, you may die. Or maybe if you're Jewish or a Christian, you can be a subordinate member of society with restrictive behaviors. But the point is, the Ottoman Empire, the Arabs, the Muslims conquered Europe. Come on. Every single Arab or Muslim oriented state, Egypt, everybody conquered, not occupied by and well, there's people who lived there who became slaves or they were allowed to live there, but the country, the government was occupied by Muslims by use of force, not by persuasion. But none of that matters. Get practical. Let's be practical. Who are your allies? Who has made contributions to a safer, saner world in the long run? You can choose to stand up and criticize anybody. I'm sure if you pick Lithuania or Switzerland, you could find out how they're destroying the world. And if you want to write a book about it, and you could really put a lot of knives into American behavior and Russian and Chinese and African. And the only one who gets away with it is not Tibet. There's a place that has how you doing is their major thing. It's not a GDP thing. It's happiness. I forget. It's not Tibet. It's close to Tibet. So, Costa Rica. Costa Rica is probably the ideal state. No military, very few police. They have more teachers than they have policemen. And they have two beaches and they have no army. And they get great education and great health care. That's Costa Rica. And there you go. It's only 5 million people, I think. But most countries have some guilt and shame, just like most people. Now, I don't think there's anyone here who's free from having done something that maybe was a mistake or something they wish they could have not done. Stuff. So anyhow, so you could argue this forever. I'm going to tell you that. Oh, I can't tell you. I'm not going to burden you with this joke. It's very funny, but I don't want to do that. So anyhow, I think we've concluded that Jim has said it's going to be very difficult to get the protection in there for the Navy to get rid of the mines. And as Frank has said, if we don't open up the Straits of Hormuz and restore global commerce, it's going to be very, as maybe a worldwide depression, certainly destruction of the right wing in the U.S. because of failure, you know. And but if he win, maybe Trump will get a third term. you know. Okay, so who else wants to say anything else on this? Jim, you going to wrap up on all of this? I don't. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with the thing about Israel. I think all right, I'll put my foot into my mouth here. I think Alex has a right to be prejudiced against Israel and the US and any country he wants to be prejudiced against. He has that right. And you don't
has the
that's
right
all.
prejudice against US
Yeah,
because
it could be. That's
his
right.
all sources are,
Yeah.
against US and very strange,
Yes.
and I see glimmer in his eyes when he talking about US this kind of failures. I
Yeah.
see that. It's obvious, you
Yes,
know.
I know. I understand. And I think the US invented rock and roll. I don't think anybody wants to forgive him for that. So there's always you could find something wrong with anybody. Oh, you know what's interesting? I found out this in a family. If there's somebody in your family who's always watching out to find out what you did that was wrong, it's really hard to keep having a good attitude towards them. Anything like, oh, you left the fridge open. Oh, you were breaking the speed limit. Oh, you put on the wrong color socks. Anything, even minuscule things. Somebody who's acting as a policeman is not friendly. So somebody who's going to find something wrong with the U.S. Or something wrong with capitalism, something wrong with Western civilization, come on. Sometimes the steak gets burned. It's not always comes out perfect, but at least you got steaks. So, when you're alive and you're doing things, you open the door to liability and errors and mistakes and misfortune. And, you can't make an omelet without breaking the eggs. And you can't you will drive people crazy if you come out with too many cliche statements like that. So I'm done talking, please. I'm burning myself out.
Let
And
me just.
Jim, please take it over, Jim.
First of all, it is always very difficult to talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It always is very difficult. People are very passionate about it, understandably. And I just simply said that, look, Israel's not going away. There has to be some kind of settlement between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And it's obvious that it ain't going to happen now for all sorts of reasons. But, that's sort of the tragedy of looking at what's going on, because obviously I've watched friends of mine who were very much opposed to the way the United States handled the Israelis during the October War. They felt like the United States prevented them from winning, and they had all sorts of different bitter feelings about it. And then these are people who actually, friends of mine who were in Beirut in 1982. One of the most powerful things I ever heard was somebody described to me what happened to him when his platoon was opposite Sabra and Shatila. And he watched that happen in front of his eyes. The next morning, they were receiving the wounded and treating the Palestinians who had been killed and wounded by the Lebanese Phalange. So that issue is always hard to talk about and argue about. It's a very, very difficult issue. And, Michael's very passionate about it. Alex has his point of view about it. I don't reject the idea of the existence of the state of Israel. I understand why it happened. I understand I've been like a lot of people, like I did not know the Palestinian point of view until I'd say after the 6 Day War. Then I began to seriously try to understand it. And so, I get caught in the middle of all this because, who's going to defend, like on October 7th, people coming across a border and, quote, killing people, justifying their killing, of course, as these are colonists and settlers we have to kill, which is what they did, of course. I mean, I've sort of found the arguments that happened after October 7th when people are denying rapes occurred. I mean, come on, guys. This is ridiculous. I mean, people, you saw immediately once that started to happen, and once I started seeing people really get vicious on the streets to each other, um, and I saw that firsthand at Columbia. Then it became a situation where you could see how difficult it was to have any kind of reasonable communication. And people had gone out and killed relatives of the different parties involved. I mean, Israelis had been killed, Palestinians had been killed, so it was just very difficult for people to have a spirit of reconciliation at all about it. And in terms of the issue of quote, I mean, Dimitri don't live in New York. I mean, like Alex's opinions are very typical of a lot of other people. There are certain opinions that Alex has that says that he feels that I agree with 100%. Others' opinions I don't agree with them. But Washington, I guess the Washington area. Well, there are a lot of people down there who have different attitudes about the government. That's true if you're in the D.C. area. But forget about it. New York. You'd be arguing with all of us all the time if you were up here. Shit. Um, um, and so, I just don't know what's going to happen in this situation. I think Trump has made one of the biggest blunders of his political career. I don't think, now Frank's arguing earlier about regime change. What's regime change? Like the fact that they went down a couple of tiers below the leadership that they'd killed, and they got this one guy. I mean, I wonder how the hell he's reacting to it. He selected, this guy Galba is selected as the leader that they can work with. I just say, but who knows what the hell's going on? And then, yesterday Trump says, I got an unexpected gift from Iran, and I won't tell you what it is. Obviously, it was some sort of amount of money. Who knows what it is? So, it's just impossible to figure out what he's, it's a very intentional strategy. Let's put it that way, to keep everybody off kilter. Typical Trump maneuvering. And then if it's a quote bribe, I mean, like, my God, I mean, these guys are one of the most corrupt administrations in the history of the United States. Look at what's going on with Corey Landowski on Capitol Hill. He could be implicated in all sorts of different things. Then we have this constant. I mean, some of you, the Epstein situation doesn't cease to exist. Today, I was looking at some of the depositions. I guess they're going to be declassified to the public if they're not already, of his accountant and his lawyer, and the guys that were saying, like, well, for 20 years we didn't know what went on. I mean, come on. I mean, this is ridiculous. So, I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be one of the most crazy, exciting times to live in the United States in the next couple of months. I wouldn't put it past Trump to do a January 6th to stifle the midterms. He's doing his best. I don't think the SAVE Act is going to pass. And so, we've got a very serious set of problems to deal with. And, a lot of Americans think Trump is great, but what I find fascinating is it's the amount of Americans I know who have decided to withdraw their support for Trump is quite extensive. And I'm not talking about people who are, basically, I'm not talking about political radicals or liberals or whatnot. I'm talking about, conservative middle road people who decide to vote for him. They're very angry at his policies. So, we'll see what happens with this. And I don't see how Trump is going to get out of this easily. They clearly did not calculate that this would blow up in their face the way it has. And we'll see. He could pull a rabbit out of his hat. I know. But I just don't see that his idea of regime change I don't see how the Iranians are going to go for that, to basically be extorted. I find that hard to believe that they would accept that. And I don't care how far down the totem pole he goes. It just doesn't make sense. Now, again, who wants to be battered continually by bombing? I mean, that's the coercive stick that he has, along with the Israelis. But I just don't see. I think the economic pressures are going to build that are going to make it difficult for Trump to continue this much longer.
Okay, let's give Frank a last hand. And you're going to be the end, Frank. let's give it to you. Go ahead.
This is the end, my friend. Okay.
Yes.
I'm basically in support of what Jim's saying regarding Israel and Palestine. It's a very, very slippery slope walking that one. But my concern really is the catastrophic situation our military is now being placed is beyond words, really, because it's not just simply that we're going to try and do a regime change with maybe 3 brigades, maybe 4 brigades, and it's going to be a very hairy operation. It is doable. It is doable with the massive support that is available to ground elements with the amount of air support you can get, as long as it's subordinate to that ground element, which is a difficult thing to do, but it is a possibility. And there are a number of things that must be accomplished. Yeah, you've got to take not only the islands, but you've got to take Bandar Abbas. You've also got to take the route up. You've got to take that part of the Zagros Mountains, and you've got to take the tunnel system that connects Tehran to some of the major cities around there. You can do it. You can do it, but you are going to take a lot of casualties. Now, the problem with that is that this is a different war than what the armed forces of the United States, what the Pentagon needs to be focused on. This is a completely different war than what it would be against, say, China. Completely different. It is absolutely the wrong place, wrong time to be. So because of that, you have a terrible situation. I think it is a terrible situation that at the anniversary of this great nation, it is very likely that Trump will be impeached following the November midterms. Because, he just lost a Senate seat in Florida. It's like, how'd that happen? In Florida? What? And the way this war will turn, it will start to get ugly. But if he doesn't do it, basically Iran has got us by the short and curlies. He's got us by the jugular. The rest of the world, that is. There will be a recession. No question. If it goes to 150. And when it comes to understanding history, particularly military history, which is not taught enough, is that when you look at it in the granular, you start to see, you look at it from the point of view of cui bono, who benefits? Well, the United States really will not benefit even if there is a regime change. And when I say regime change, I'm talking about chaos and possibly civil war, but I'm thinking of a sort of rump state next to the coastline there around the Strait of Hormuz. And the rest of it will just become, bedlam. Now, from the point of view of the United States, that's not good because of the reasons I've just given. But also, it is a massive benefit for Russia and a massive benefit for Israel. So when you look at it from that point of view, you need to start looking at it, how this all came about. And I don't want to go there, but I found that in my study of history, particularly the Second World War, you look at the Soviet Union, it started out as a basket case and it ended up as the second most powerful entity on the planet. How did it do that? Well, it's happenstance. It's just what happened, how the cards fell. No, I don't buy that, and I still don't. So unfortunately, histories are written by people who need to sell books or to get tenure or some crap like that, right? So this is getting the answer to what happened on, for instance, October 7th is extremely difficult, and the truth is very hard to find. But what we do know is that at the end of this, it's possible that the Middle East will become a much more progressive, more secular, and positively futuristic. In other words, it's going to get away from being Muslim dominated in the sense that it'll become less like the 7th century and more like Turkey. That's what I see. That will be a boon for everybody. But whether or not Iran will be a functioning place, with 92 million people, that's not good. That's just not good. But I don't see any alternative. But because of the predicament that the president has put us in, or somebody put him in this predicament, I can't see any alternative than him being forced to go in with boots on the ground in a much bigger way than people are suggesting. Certainly, I'm hearing Carg Island. Well, that would be dopey, but they might do that. I don't know, but it'd be stupid. But I think, Bandar Abbas and a move towards some of the key cities like Kerman, Surjan, and Yazd, and then securing the high ground, which is a completely different battle than what it will be around Bandar Abbas. So, that's the military point of view. But in the long term, this is a tragedy for the Pentagon. I mean, not the Pentagon, the Armed Forces of the United States. Real tragedy. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Frank. That's fine. That's a good, solid, understandable prediction. Okay, so let's wrap it up, guys. It's 11 o'clock back east.
Ken, could I just say one thing?
All right, but keep it
quickly. Yeah,
pleasant. Keep it pleasant.
I wanted to say that all of that stuff is something that amping the temperature up on that is something that I had to do at the time. What happened was I have seen recently, as I did in the past, in racism against African Americans, and then I just saw it against Jews in general, is that people, and they would talk to me and they say, well, we don't mean you, Mike. No, you're an exception. But they would use the same rhetoric, some of which Alex was stating, and I'm not saying he did it intentionally or even knowingly, but the rhetoric that we use, and this comes from all sides of any issue, the rhetoric that sometimes we're using, if it goes to an extreme, and if it is not separate, if it's not carefully done, will be used. I have seen it already several times in the past few weeks, will be used to justify racism. And I mean blatant racism, where they're calling up things that were in the protocols of the elders of Zion, that type of racism.
Okay, but Mike, we don't want to start on a whole.
No. What I'm trying to say is the reason I was doing that is I think that we all, and this is just a statement, that we all have to be careful. This doesn't mean we can't state our opinions, but we have to be careful about our rhetoric, or if we want to say the rhetoric, to make sure that we couple it with anti-racist.
Well, that's your philosophy. Some people might say, I am a proud racist. I'm a white supremacist, and I appreciate it. Some people might say that. Go down to Georgia, find it. You go to Iran. I've met a lot of people in Iran, and they said, "Oh, we're not like the others. We're the real race. We invented society. The crescent, the Fertile Crescent, and all of that." So some people are racist. You got to admit there's going to be people that are racist, and you certainly don't want to discriminate against them. So
but we're not.
So don't go about saying, the ultimate, the most evil crime in the world is racism because I think so.
Well, no. I will say that I think the most evil crime in the world is racism.
Well, that's fine. There's a guy who has a newspaper on that was on KPFK. He says the biggest problem in the world is all problems in the world are because of racism. That's what he said. Global warming, everything. Anything. It's all racism. That's fine.
But the point I'm making is that us here on this show, there are racists all over us, and they're more blatant now than they ever were. They've always been there.
Yeah.
They're more blatant now than they've been in many decades. But the fact is, we, who are supposedly not racist, okay, we don't believe we're racist or anything like that, and we're probably not. But we have to be careful. If we are not racist and we are against racism, whether or not you think it's the worst evil, the second worst evil, the third, we just got to be careful that if we're going to make these statements, if we don't want to be careful about what statements we make. Then we have to make sure that we come out against the racism. I'm talking about us here on this show.
Okay. All right. Fine. Thank you. You made your point. Thanks.
Yes, I
That's
didn't
it.
make it
Frank,
uninterrupted, but I made it.
you got something else, Frank, or you're going to let us go? Oh, Frank.
No, okay. I've got one last thing to say.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Mike might be addressing me.
No,
not
you.
All of us.
All right, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that the facts, just the facts, ma'am. You if all the facts point in one direction, sadly, whatever the final outcome of those facts, that has to override everything else in this. We are children of the Enlightenment. We need to be that. We need to think this through rationally, and you've got to know whether or not you're being influenced by your own human condition. It's that subliminal thoughts and your hates and your dislikes and what have you. We're supposed to be above that. That's why we're supposed to have a Congress that functions. It doesn't function at this particular point. It's effing useless. So we have a constitution that says, yeah, okay, you've got your your primordial kind of stupidities, right? And that could be racism and many things. It can be vengeance. It could be anything, retribution and all that. But we've got a Congress. We got executive. We got the legal. We got the law. That should override all these problematic things, and it's not doing it. And I blame the Democrats too. It's like they don't seem to be able to step up when they're supposed to step up. I mean, they're not articulate enough, and when they do step up, they start talking in the wrong direction. And that's you've got to accept that there are people out there who do not want to see men in skirts winning all the races. They just don't. It's like that's the way it is. You can't go woke to the point it's absurd. But then again, on the other side, you can't. It's a sad thing if you get into a personality cult and you want to worship a guy. It's like that is just a sad phenomenon. And it's just you want to please. It's like some kind of father figure that you didn't have. I know what's the issue there? I don't think it school is falling short somehow. I feel schools are falling short. They're not teaching people, because it's difficult. It's difficult. Locke and Hobbes and all the rest of them. You need to go through that. You're not doing it. So, well, even if they are, but again, I'm looking at it from the point of view of the United States. The United States is going into the next decade, and Xi Jinping may be looking at this and saying, "This is a wonderful day. Every day is just better than the preceding one. It's a gift that keeps on giving." Not good. It's not good for the United States. It's just not good. So that's my final word. Oh, I can't hear you, Ken.
I said, okay, it's pragmatic. Let's pray to the gods you think might be listening to give us something that's not too difficult and something that can continue to be changed and improved. Okay, that's it. That's enough for today. Let's call an end to this. And enjoy the dialogue. It's all fine. And there's Tom. Okay, so we're going to be ending off right now. Okay, everybody agree?
Yeah, thanks.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, sorry to be late.
Oh, well, that's okay, Tom. I'll let you know what we didn't determine. Okay, guys.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Okay, bye-bye. So everybody's leaving, and we were just talking about. Are you still there, Tom? Mike is still there. Remove.
We ended the meeting, Ken. What did you expect him to do?
Well, okay, so he's gone. That's all right. Well, that's it. Everybody else left. So I think, let me see, my participants. Yeah, just you and I. Just you and I together. So what did you think of the Academy Awards?
Not much. Well, that was fine. I only watched the part that interested me was the people who died and how they memorialized.
That was well done, right?
Yeah, except they didn't do as much for Robert Duvall as I would have thought, but they
Oh.
did play at least Redford.
Well, he's basically a B player. I mean, but I know he was real popular.
I thought he was as up there as Diane Keaton, but you can't make the entire show about the people who died. So they selected who they selected, and they did it the way they did it. So that was fine. And the rest of the awards, who won? I mean, most of these films, I haven't even seen them. I've just seen clips of them. I was supposed to go to a black tie Oscar party, and then they had to, the ticket turned out not to be available. So I was sitting there watching on and off on TV and typing up my play at the same time. So I didn't pay as much attention, but the Academy Awards have gone downhill, and they were always problematic. Okay, I mean, who wins? Why are they winning? Why would people voted for those people? One of my favorite stories is that in 1946, the movie The Best Years of Our Lives was up for a whole bunch of Oscars. It won 7, but one of the Oscars it was up for was Best Supporting Actor, which is Harold Russell, who was a disabled vet. And nobody in the academy, because Harold Russell never acted before, so nobody thought he was going to win. So they had a special Oscar for his performance, as a wounded veteran, right? And he winds up winning the Best Supporting Oscar too. So he winds up with
he got 2 Oscars
for the same performance, and it was just it's wacky to me. I've always felt that the important things are, in other words, you go to see the films themselves. More people probably watch the Oscars than have seen all the films that were nominated. And to me, that's almost absurd. But that's about it. I haven't seen a really good Oscar show in 25 years. So, I mean.
Oh, well, I'm not gonna go looking for it, but Bill Mayer, Mayer, he did a little commentation on what he thought of the Oscars, and it was good. I totally agree with him. And what he did was at the end he went through a list of like 12 or 15 great movies that got no Oscars.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought the only time the Oscars really got it right for the most
part. One of them was, I remember, Citizen Kane, no Oscars.
No Oscars, yeah, but it was up against How Green Was My Valley.
Whatever.
Now, one of the biggest Oscar winners of all time, it really was tied for the most because it was West Side Story. I thought, knowing me, I thought that was a legitimate Oscar ceremony. I mean, it was a powerful year. A lot of people didn't get Oscars. There were a couple of mistakes. Sidney Poitier should have been nominated at least for Best Actor for Raising the Sun.
Oh, I got pissed when they didn't give it to Malcolm X. I thought that was a fucking amazing movie.
Right. So there were,
and it's in a genre of that director. It's his own genre, where he has a musical number in every movie, and what's his name? That guy.
Oh, Spike Lee. But
Spike Lee, yeah, it's his own genre.
Yeah, but the reason I was bringing up the West Side Story is even that year when I thought the Oscars got it right.
West Side Story, they won, didn't they?
They won 10 Oscars, and Jerome Robbins got an honorary Oscar for contributions to choreography on film for the film West Side Story. So it really won a lot. But the idea is, the funny thing is that even of those Oscars, I thought it should have won as many Oscars, but where they got it wrong was, as good as George Chakiris was, I think Montgomery Clift should have gotten it. And
what was his movie?
Judgment at Nuremberg.
Oh,
It was a no, but he was due an Oscar anyway. But that's besides the point. And also the other thing, even more so, was that they gave Ernest Lehman, who wrote a brilliantly adapted screenplay for West Side Story. That was the one Oscar West Side Story didn't win.
oh,
Instead, it went to Abby Mann, who wrote Judgment in Nuremberg, which was a
all right.
great screenplay, but he adapted it from his own teleplay,
Yeah.
which was far easier than what Ernest Lehman had to do, which was to adapt it from Arthur Lawrence, the book that Arthur Lawrence wrote for the original musical. So, I mean, I said to myself, they gave it to the guy. They were both brilliant screenplays, but they gave it to the guy who had the easier time of doing it, rather than the guy who really, really did a brilliant job of adapting. And so even then, and that was, I considered, one of the best years for the Oscars. They always get something wrong, you know. And there were other somewhat good years or something, but I haven't really agreed with the Oscars for the most part. I guess the year Anthony Hopkins won for Silence of the Lambs, yeah, that was.
No, they won like 7 awards.
Yeah, and that was a fairly good year. Not as good, but I haven't seen a year in at least the last. Well, that would be about 30 years ago. In the last 30 years, in which I thought the Oscars, even for the most part, got it right. But remember, it's a voting thing. Somebody picks the nominees.
It's just what is it's just actors and directors. It's SAG. It's not SAG. What is it?
It's the American Academy. And
so who's in that?
Well, whoever does enough gets enough notoriety in films that they invite him into the Academy. I mean, there have been times when I remember James Garner once said that a lot of the people he knew who were members of the Academy didn't even vote. They gave it to their wives.
Yeah.
You know, so
I was watching a lot of James. I love going off because I know you're somebody who could talk to. You don't mind if we take a side step. I've been watching this when I was in New York. I was in New York for 3 weeks. But then I was watching James Garner movies.
Yeah.
You know, and he made so many. He had like four or five characters. You know, he was a cop. I think it was called Hooker or something like that. And then he Maverick, and then and I'm forgetting the other ones. Oh, Rockford Files. And then he made a couple of movies, you know.
Right.
And then I saw him one where he played a sheriff, and it was a hostage situation, and he was like an old cop, you know. So it's a great actor, but and then I think of some of the actors who tried to take his place as the big, good-looking guy who's not threatening, but he's very, you know, reliable. That's the character he played, you know, a regular guy.
He basically played, you know, like one or two role characters. He wasn't a Robert Duvall.
Okay? No. He's not a great actor, right?
Yeah, but he was a.
Wait, remember he was in the Escape movie,
The Great Escape.
Yeah, The Great Escape.
But it was just a variation of that. But the fact is, he was good at what he did.
Yeah.
And so I would say he was a solid actor, not a great actor, not like an actor's actor. And he didn't even think he was. But he said he tried to handle the parts intelligently. He knew what they wanted from him. And he tried to do, you know, as well as he could, and maybe vary it a little bit. But I know his own favorite role was the Americanization of Emily. I don't know if you ever saw the movie.
Yeah, I thought so.
And he played a self-professed coward.
Huh?
A guy during World War II who was a self-professed coward. He was just saying, "I'm a coward. I don't want to. I don't want to die." And he liked that role because he had been in Korea, and he had been wounded in Korea. And
right, that was another guy. That's right. He's in the service.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
A lot of them went through that. But I mean, there were some years that where you just say, I mean, when John Wayne won an Oscar, I said, "Oh, come on." But then there were people like Peter O'Toole never won an Oscar, a competitive Oscar. Richard Burton never won a competitive Oscar.
Oh, you mean they got like an Oscar for their career or something?
Something like that. If they got that, yeah. But there are a lot of great actors that didn't win competitive Oscars. And again, it's a popularity thing. It's, if somebody says, if the word is out that somebody is a real jerk, and no matter how great a performance they give, people aren't going to vote for them. And so I always say to myself, this is kind of an in-house clubby type of thing. And everybody, and a billion people are watching it all over the world. So I always laugh about that because, they don't, it's not done, with real great thought, where people are like, where you have great acting teachers judging the performances, or great film directors judging, whether or not this was really good film directing. Most of the people who vote don't know them that much about what they're voting for. They really don't know. A lot of, I mean, how many, there are some members of the Academy, actors, who have never done a play, never taken an acting lesson, and didn't know anything about acting until somebody stuck them in a major part in a movie.
Right.
And then they're invited into the Academy. So, so when I watch the Oscars, I got to take that. And I understand. I think Marlon Brando turned down his Oscar because for political reasons. Okay, he used it for something else because he didn't care about him. But when George C. Scott refused the Oscar.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
For Dr. Strangelove?
No, for Patton.
Oh, for Patton. Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think it was a truly.
It was better in Dr. Strangelove, I think.
Yes, I agree with you. But the idea is, he had told them he had first been nominated for the movie The Hustler as a supporting actor. And he had said right then, that was in 1961 again, he said, "I don't believe in competitive awards for acting. I don't believe in it. I don't see, how you're going to, it's all subjective. People aren't voting for the right reasons." And he said he was going to turn it down. He didn't win. That's the West Side Story. George Chakiris won. But and he kept on saying he was going to turn it down. So when they gave him the Oscar for Patton, he turned it down. He had told everybody he didn't want the Oscar. He wasn't going to accept it. And he said, again, "I don't believe that you take anything that you suppose is artistic and have people vote about it and give awards for it or something. The award is the performance and the effect it has." So I would agree with that. But again, would I turn, if I ever got to that point, which I'm probably not going to, obviously, would I turn down Oscar? Probably not. But, and it's also become a money-making. They advertise for the Oscar.
Yes, that's the major thing. As an award-winning this, and they'll also say starring, nominated, Academy nominated. They'll put down nominated people.
Yeah. Oh, and before the Oscars, if you look at, let's say, Variety. In Variety, people would take out full-page ads saying, "Vote for me."
Yeah.
So I mean,
But anyhow, you got to watch. You should watch the thing from. If I ever find it, I'll send it to you. But Bill Maher, because Maher's gonna, he's coming over to Centra. He's like critical of the woke things.
He's critical of both sides. One thing I like about him is he's critical about people going to extremes and not using, common sense or basic sense. And
Yeah.
I agree with it. To me, that's why I had to start. Well, with Alex, you have to start yelling.
Alex is just over the top. He's anti-capitalist. He's just communist. I don't know why.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have, and he wants to have something. So he's getting on the bandwagon of, look, there was demonstrations today in New York City on Canal Street against ICE. And it was like, maybe there's 30 cops, but there's like 300 activists. Get out of here. We don't want you. Get out of here.
Yeah. Well,
very aggressive, very aggressive.
ICE is at the airports, right? So they were
I don't know if it's supposed to be. I don't know because of the hold off, the blackmailing from the Democratic Party.
It's both sides. It's both sides not compromising at all. Both sides. Sure. We're not going to give in, and that's it. So meanwhile, who suffers? People who travel. The regular people who travel. So there are these long lines, and ICE was called in. And everybody was saying, "Oh, ICE is at the airport. They're looking for immigrants." Well, but then I looked at it, and I'm anti-ICE, right? But
all right,
but they're at the airports. No one was arrested, right? So if they were looking for immigrants, that would be a good place to look for them. And no one was arrested. So I said, "Okay, you got to give them."
No. I think the ICE, some federal officer, I don't know if it was ICE, were down to help the line checking security. That's why they weren't at the airports.
Exactly. And then other
people. I don't know that they would then start arresting people.
No, but they weren't arresting like what they were doing in Minnesota.
Yeah, right. What they were normally doing, right?
Yeah, what they were doing before, because that's not what they're there for at the airport. So I said, you can't condemn them for doing something they're not doing, and they're not doing that at the airport just because you don't like them or you don't like the organization. Are they doing anything wrong? So far, they haven't been doing anything wrong. And then other people were saying, yeah, but the TSA agents are doing all the work. They're doing the checking, and the ICE guys are standing behind it. And I said, and I looked at these articles and everything, and it showed the ICE guy just standing there. And then I said to myself, but maybe they're not there to help the TSA. Maybe they're there for crowd control to make sure things don't get out of hand. So, I can't condemn them for that either. So, I was just talking to people and they said, well, ICE is at the airports, it's horrible and everything. I said, well, they haven't done anything bad there. I mean, maybe they should, those that are trained in TSA operations should be helping in some way, but they're not doing anything, they're not aggressively being, doing things like arresting immigrants or something. They're not doing any of the things that they were accused of and probably did do in Minnesota. They're not doing that at the airport. So as long as they're not doing that, fine, let them be there. I mean, if I will have to go because a good friend of mine in Winnipeg died, so I have to go up for the funeral in a couple of weeks, and I have to go to the airport. So if there's ICE people standing around, just watch, just looking to make sure, there's no riot or people don't try to jump the lines or something, and they're just standing there and not bothering anybody, then I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they're there for a reason, and they're performing the reason that they're there for. So fine. That's why I'm just saying you can't go to these extremes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't start saying all ICE, they're all horrible people, and they were, they should all be shot and everything like that. I'm going, yeah, there were guys that did.
No. I understand. Well, the bad PR, but the principle that the people are doing. First of all, whoever brought those people there, what's the big motive behind it? is more political than anything else. But that
Yeah.
the idea is saying, like, we don't care that the guy is here illegally. Go home, leave him alone.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you got something
Exactly.
else on him, fine. You can't just pick him up and take him because he's here illegally. Maybe he was here 20 years. You don't know. So just don't bother. Leave. We don't agree with the policy.
Yeah,
That's
but
it,
the
you
idea
know.
is, yeah. I mean, the idea is if there was a guy who was a serial rapist or something, and the only way you can get him is to deport him, and ICE deports him, I'm going, well, look, they couldn't get him on anything else, and the guy's going around, raping women and everything. Or if he's, I mean, yeah, those are the hardened criminals or something. It's the other
Right.
people that I worry about. But the point I'm making is that at the airport, they were deployed to the airport. And so far as I've seen, they haven't done anything wrong there.
Yeah.
They may have made a few people nervous by their presence, but I don't even think they were trying to do that. They, because after Minnesota, they tried to tone it down. And so I mean, I don't like ICE. I don't like what they did. I don't like what they're doing, et cetera. I don't like the whole concept. But if they're at an airport and their job is to just make sure that things don't get out of control, has nothing to do with illegal immigrants or anything, just to make sure that the crowds don't get out of control, there's no riot, because there are very long lines. And if that's what they're there for and that's what they're doing, fine. That job, but people, if they're going to protest and they're going to say, get ICE out of our airports or something like that, well, I would say there are more important things to protest, right? That's
Yeah.
just my feeling. And by the way, those airport lines, I hope you're not flying anywhere in the next couple of weeks.
No, I may come. No, we're hoping to come back in the beginning of April. Not the beginning of April, near the end of April.
Well, hopefully it'll be easing off. Well, we don't
Well,
know.
maybe the world will be over. And
Yeah,
I was taking a look at taking a train instead. But
yeah.
it's a
A friend of mine,
possibility. But it's 3 days,
a
62
friend of
hours,
mine drove.
66 hours.
A friend of mine had to come in from LA. They had work to do on a apartment they own that they're subletting, and he lived, but they live in LA, and he drove. He
Yeah.
drove 3 days, and then spent a week here, and then drove 3 days back.
I have a friend. We were visiting somebody, and a friend came from Alabama to visit a person in the hospital.
Yeah,
Took her 2 days. She
yeah.
said she stopped in Austin.
Well, I mean, but that's an option. I was thinking I've got to go to Winnipeg, and the funeral's on the 11th. And if this stuff is still going on, I was thinking of taking the train up to Toronto.
Yeah.
Canada doesn't have the long lines because they're TSA. They're not involved in this
Oh, and then
process.
fly from Toronto.
Fly from Toronto. It'll cost me more money, and it'll take me 2 days to get there, but I won't spend one of those days waiting on a 5-hour line.
Right. And you could even take a bus up to Toronto.
Yeah, well, that I might. I've taken the bus. I think I'd rather wait on the line. Yeah, that's no pun intended. That's over the line. Yeah, I mean, it depends. If they tell me, if for instance they tell me, you got to get there 3 hours before, so I get there 4 hours before, and it only takes me 2 hours. That's not so bad. But it's a 12.5-hour train ride
Oh
to
my.
now but for just about $20 more, you can go business class where you have these wide seats. You can really sleep on the train. So
What do
I
you
was
get
just
for business class? Like a wider seat?
a wider seat, more more room, more leg room.
Yeah.
The seat goes not all the way, but 3/4 of the way back. It's
Yeah.
sleepable,
Yeah.
And I said $20 more, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I
That's a good
figured,
deal.
yeah, I
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go now.
yeah, me too. I'm gonna go to the CVS. So I'll
Okay.
see you next week. Oh wait a second, hold it. Next week I won't see it's Passover. That's why I
Okay.
had to be up tonight, because I won't be there next week.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Good night.
The week after. Okay. All right, buddy. Hey, Ken,
Yes.
if you are coming into New York, let us know in advance.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that we know to, set things up. If you want to come by on a Thursday to the diner, we know you're going to be here.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Will
all.
do. Okay. Bye-bye.
You bring your wife also.
Yeah.
Bring her
Okay.
too.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.